Welcome to Terry's Kitchen, where we talk food, faith, and family. So today I am going to be making a cashal pie. And those that know what a cashal pie is like pumpkin. Well, that's how we use it, as pumpkin. But it is the green and white long-necked squash that you use to decorate in the fall. But we use it and we love, actually I prefer, my side of the family prefers the cashal versus a pumpkin pie. So I'm making the crust for that. So we'll make the crust, but I just would like to read a scripture this morning that I have out of the NIV Bible. And it is out of Matthew 5, and it's the Beatitudes. Now when he saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. And again, that's out of Matthew 5, 1 through 12. So I like the Beatitudes, and just know that the Lord's there to comfort us and to be with us at all times. So thank you for letting me read that, and so let me wash my hands and we'll get started. So as I mentioned, we're making our pie crust. Those that have seen previous videos, I have put my pie crust on one of our tapes when I did the chicken pot pie. But today we're going to use that crust again for a cashal pie. So let's go ahead and make the crust, and then I'm going to cool it, chill it, because as I mentioned, we need to really, the dough, to get it a flaky crust, we definitely want it to be chilled. So I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Oh, let me get a spatula here. I have 3/4 cups of shortening and a pinch of salt. So you're going to go in with your hands and just mix that to get the shortening incorporated into your flour. I have put on a plastic apron today because when I make pies, I get that flour everywhere. And it's so easy to clean my apron. If it's plastic, then the cloth, because when it's the cloth material, then I'm ended up having to wash it rather quickly, more so than I normally. I wash it about once a week if I could. I alternate between all my aprons, but the plastic ones are nice just to wipe down. So you want to mix that to where your is kind of crumbly, and get some of those large pieces of Crisco worked in, but you don't want to work it too much because you don't want your dough to be tough. So I have 8 tablespoons of ice water, and I put a couple ice cubes in there just to get it colder. So I'm just going to pour a little bit in. I don't want to pour all 8 teaspoons in there, just in case I don't need that. Because you're just going to work it in until your dough starts coming into a ball. Today, when I was to make the crust, because normally if I'm cooking without the camera watching me, I'll just mix it up and go to the faucet, turn on the cold water, and just run water and put the bowl underneath and work it that way. But since I'm having people, I'm on camera, and want people to be using these recipes, I thought, well, let me measure things out so you know. So maybe just a little bit more, because again, you want to get that flour incorporated into to make your ball. I'm going to put, I used all of that, those 8 tablespoons. I think that we are good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this in saran wrap, and then I'm just going to put that into the refrigerator. So that's our dough. I'm going to put it into the refrigerator. I'm going to chill it definitely 30 minutes or longer. The longer I feel like you chill it, the flakier your crust is. So this will make a one layer pie crust, or if you were going to do what I call a fruit pie, a fancy pie is one crust. A fruit pie you would definitely use, it would only make one pie if you were doing the fruit pie. So, but since I'm going to be doing the crusts, we'll actually be able to get 2 out of here. So I'll be back. Okay, our pie dough has been in the refrigerator for about an hour. So I'm going to roll it out so that we can begin assembling the crusts pie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide the dough, because we are making a single pie crust. We can divide it and we'll have 2. So I'm going to flour my surface. Not too much, but you want to make sure that you have enough flour so that your dough doesn't stick to your counter. So here is one, and I'm just going to kind of put it in form it a little bit in a ball, put a little flour, and put some on my rolling pin. So then I'm going to roll it, and your crust is going to be, your dough is going to be firm, and that's what you want, because you want that flaky crust. Now, do not turn your dough, because the more you turn it, you have the potential of making it tough. So I used to turn the dough, and it wasn't as flaky and I think tender as it is now. So I think that'll work. And pie crust, I mentioned when I was doing the chicken pot pie, if it breaks, we can work with that. It's all good. So here are my pie pans. So those that know me know that you'll hear me talk about my grandmother Wilmetta and my great aunt TeTe. They used the Corningware pie pans. These are so hard to come by, but through the years people have, a friend, Pip, had given me 1 or 2. Cousin Riri had found some for us. And so anytime I see this at an antique shop, I will pick them up because they don't make them any longer. I don't think it changes the way the pie crust is, but in my mind, I have to have my corn flour pie pan for me to have a good pie. So, okay. So after I'm going to just fold the crust over. And if you want to bring it this way, because you're fearful that you may not get it to your pie pan, just bring it over here a little bit. I just pick it up, take both hands, and bring it over. So you've done a half moon shape, and then you're going to bring it over and just kind of fit it into the pan, the pie pan. Now, because I'm doing the crusts pie, or a pumpkin pie, I am not going to pre-bake the crust. I want it to be an unbaked crust because I'm going to put that crusts filling and bake everything together. So and what you see me doing is you're seeing me bring that crust in and kind of letting it fall itself. I don't want to change the shape of the dough because it will kind of shrink a little bit. So I'll just kind of lift and let it fall. I don't want to stretch the dough basically. So this is where you can make any type of side a decoration. I have made it where I've done nothing and just cut the edges like this. I'll just come around and cut the edges. But today I'm going to make them pretty. We're having company over. I'm making these for tomorrow. And so I want them to be pretty if I'm going to be serving my pie. So you just go around the edge. I probably just have a 1/4 of an inch that I'm leaving so that I can kind of tuck that under. And then what you do is you just come around to roll that under. Let me bring that over here. See, I said earlier, I have flour everywhere. That's because I do. I love to play in the flour. So you just roll that around. And you've heard me talk about, several times about how my grandmother and aunt used to love to bake and cook together. And so do I. If we have children around, our friend Tanya brought her 3 children and we made apple pies together. They had an individual pie that they made, so that was a lot of fun. The dough may have been a little tough because of the kids playing with it, but that's how they learn. It's okay. So if you want to crimp your edges, there's a couple ways, and I'll do the other way in the other pie crust. But what I do a lot is I'll take my index finger and my thumb and my index on the other hand and just tuck, tuck, tuck. And then you crink it. Or I don't know what the official, but I'm calling it crink. Now, again, because I want the crust to stay cold, I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator just like this and until my filling is done. So that's our first one. If I was making a fancy pie, I would do the edges like this, and then I would take a fork and poke holes in the bottom. Only the fork size. You don't want big holes because then your filling will leak out. And then you would take a fork around the edges as well, because you don't want, if you're making a fancy pie, you're going to bake your crust at a 425 degree oven, and you're going to bake it until it browns. And I'm not sure as far as time. I just keep opening up the oven. But we'll make a fancy pie sometime and I'll show you. But the reason you want to poke holes in your crust is when you're baking it, you don't want those air bubbles to get underneath there. So here's our first unbaked shell, so we'll be ready for our filling.
And what do you mean by fancy pie?
Fancy pie is a lemon, coconut, or chocolate pudding pie, and I love meringue. So I make for my lemon, I have a lemon meringue that the meringue's like this. Most of the family doesn't care for the meringue, but I refuse to make a fancy pie without meringue. They can take that meringue off. So let's go for our second pie. And we're going to use our other half. Same thing. Put it in here and just bring it around. Make it into a little bit of a round shape. A little bit of flour. More on the rolling pin. And just start rolling. Do not turn, because we don't want our crust to be tough. I hope you would consider making your own pie crust versus going to the store-bought. Nothing wrong with the store-bought, but if you can make a homemade pie for your family, they're going to be so impressed. And you'll have to work with it a little bit, just like bread. I was intimidated by bread, but you just got to go in and try. It's all good. It's kitchen. If you're in your kitchen, just have fun. So let's fold it over. Bring our pan closer. Both hands tuck, bring over. I used one when I was working, and if I would be stressed, one day I remember when we lived in Edinburgh, I was a little stressed. I came home and made 8 pies that night. Because baking to me is very relaxing. Making a pie is very relaxing to me. I know it may sound odd, but I love to make pies. So again, come around to your edges, cut off enough that you can roll it and tuck it under. And Ron is eyeing this extra crust because he's hoping that from the remaining crust that I'm going to make him a little cinnamon tart.
My favorite.
So basically with the leftover crust, you roll that out and put some melted butter, some sugar, and cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg. You fold it over like a diaper, put a little more butter, a little more sugar, a little more cinnamon and nutmeg, and then you bake that. It's just nice, ooey gooey cinnamon.
Don't worry, I'll make her show you here.
Today?
Maybe.
We've had some suggestions that people wanted the videos a little bit shorter. It's kind of hard to do that. So we're trying to kind of answer people's questions that have given us some comments. Because we do listen to what you are saying. Because again, we want all this to be fun. I enjoy doing the videos because I enjoy cooking. And so happy that you all are watching. So this is another way that you can do your edges. So you got your thumb, you got your index finger bent, and you just come around and squeeze. I'll kind of do that if I'm doing my fancy pie, my fruit pies. Which fruit, you've got the 2-layer. And you want to seal that so your fruit doesn't come out. But I also do it when I'm making pumpkin or cashal or a fancy pie. So do your edges, whichever works. Wasn't sure if that was an extra piece or that was it's attached, so I'm not going to mess with that. So here is our second crust. So I'm going to put these in the refrigerator while I'm making my filling for the cashal filling, and then I will bake that in the oven. I'll start out a 400-degree oven for 15 minutes and then finish at a 350 oven for the remaining 50 minutes. So let's